Hey everybody, we're back over the house. It's a Saturday, well, it's almost noon, so it's almost a Saturday afternoon. Welcome to Oktoberfest. So we're in the town of Oxford, and every year they put on a kind of an Oktoberfest thing, but because the name is Oxford, it's Oktoberfest. Got myself a plate of nachos and cheese, or chips and cheese, or nachos, depending on how you want to say it. But we're over here today, we're going to finish up the last few things. We're going to get the cable ends put on our cameras, we're going to get them hooked up, hopefully. If I've got an HDMI cable here, I think I do. We'll take the monitor upstairs and hook that up, make sure it's working, and just kind of button up some other stuff and get to cleaning because we're almost done. So let me finish my quasi lunch here and we'll get working. All right, so the things that we want to get done today, we need to get the ends on the cameras, get the cameras hooked up. We need to do that. We also need to just kind of rearrange and clean stuff up. This room here, the witch's den, that's basically done, with the exception of we are going to run one more trigger cord from our prop controller, which is down under that buffet table. That cord is going to come up all the way over through this wall and into here. We're going to trigger that little girl from here. And then just for kicks, we'll probably fire up the big generator one more time with everything hooked up. We'll run the cable out there, we'll hook that up, we'll hook up the air compressor. I've got all the heaters in here that we're going to need, so we're going to turn everything else on. I do have to run a line for the fog machine, so I guess we'll have to find a cord and do that. But yeah, we're in the final stages, button up. Let me go ahead and get the stuff out of the car, and I guess we'll take it easy. We'll just go put some ends on some cables first. Alrighty, so as the sunlight is waning over the house and we're starting to get a little darker, still a couple hours away from dark, but I want to get all the speakers hooked up and running. So I figured I'd talk real quick about how I set up my audio here in the house. Now, I use a couple different kinds of speakers. Now, the big PA speaker we have back in the maze, that one, it's an AS15 to go BT or one AS15TOGO-BT or something like that. But in short, it's a big PA/karaoke/party speaker. But I like that one because there's no fancy lights on it. It does have Bluetooth, it does have an FM radio, USB stick, and smart card slot. It's also wireless, so you don't have to have it plugged in, although depending on how you're using it and depending on when you stop charging it, I've noticed that it doesn't seem to hold a charge for very long. Like, I can't charge it up today and then 2 weeks from now I'll expect it to be full. It doesn't really stick a charge that way. But if I charge it up and unplug it, it seems to be fine, which is kind of what I want. However, because I want to make sure I can trust that I have all that sound this year, we do have it plugged in. That's kind of what we're doing with the extension cord. So that's that speaker there. The other speakers that I use, most of them are these guys. These are Lenru speakers. Just bought them on Amazon. They were relatively inexpensive. Now, these are their AS15s. These are kind of weatherproof, sort of, with one little exception, but they work pretty well. They've got buttons on the top, power mode, plus and minus for volume and track skipping, play pause, and then the AS15s also have a bass boost. Now, these are the originals. They actually have a little bass, vent on the back of it. I don't know how well that works for the whole waterproof thing. Now, in the back of these, you have this port that opens up. Obviously, if you're using the aux-in jack in the middle, then you're not going to be as weatherproof because you have this open. But you also have a micro SD slot back there, and that's what I use. I take two of these speakers, and I put the same file on two cards, one in each speaker, and then I close them all up nice and tight. And then I turn it on using the power button. So I'm going to turn this one on here. Okay, so this one's labeled outside, so this is one of my outside speakers. And then here is the other outside speaker. Again, I run these in pairs. Now we're going to turn this one on. Now, you may have accurately guessed that we're at two different parts of the song. And how is that going to work if you're going to have two speakers playing two different parts of the song? Like, unless you can start them exactly the same, how are you going to get them? And actually, it's relatively easy. So let me show you real quick. So here's these two speakers. They are playing. But they are at different points of the track. So what we do is we turn them both on, then we hold down this minus button on both. And now they both play the same thing. And the reason that works is because holding down the minus is the same as starting the track over. Well, I only have one track. It's like 2 hours long, but that card only has one file on it, so it's one track. So as long as I just start that track over at the same time on both speakers, I effectively get stereo speakers without having to have stereo connected speakers. Now, sometimes you can buy Bluetooth speakers that will do that, and we'll talk about those here in a second too, because I have some. But these, for the 15-20 bucks a speaker that they're rechargeable, they last, seem like forever, and some cheap SD cards in it. Copy a file as an MP3 onto it, just start the tracks at the same time on both speakers, and away you go. So what I do is I use 2 speakers per room, mostly. And that is so I can put one in opposite corners and kind of fill the room with sound from each end, instead of making it seem like the sound is only coming from one corner of the room. Now, I will also mention that those AS15s, they've come out with a newer version, no bass chamber in the back, and these newer ones are actually charged with USB-C in the back instead, but they are the same speaker, they've got the same controls and same rating and all that fun stuff. Just slightly different design there. Now, I also use a couple of their other speakers as well. So, for example, this is one that runs my little creepy girls in the gory room. This is an A10, so it's not as weatherproof. It doesn't have the extra bass thing on it, not quite as high a wattage. It does have a USB stick on the back instead, but also still a micro SD card, line in, and then a 5-volt jack. Now, the reason I use this one is specifically for that line in jack, because this is actually getting sound coming out of my Sprite Media Player. There's a file on that with a USB stick, and that actually plays through the line out jack of that through a long aux cable into here. So this speaker just hides behind the girls, and then when the Sprite Media Player gets triggered, it sends the sound down to here, and then this speaker goes blah 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 blah. Same thing with this one here. This is one of those same A10s. This one obviously has a USB stick in it. This one just has a file on it for creepy staticky radio sounds. This goes in the little radio in the creepy room. And then somewhere I also have a third one. Actually, it's this one. This one is for clock. This one just has basically ticking clock sounds forever. So this is basically just going to go on the clock in the creepy room, just playing non-stop. That's all it's there for. I realize that almost nobody's going to realize that sound is there, but I like having that extra little bit of, ambience in there that, while it might not be recognized, to me it just adds a little bit more to it. Now, the other speakers I use are these. These are iLive 360-degree speakers. These were 50 bucks. They come in a pair. I bought these at Home Depot. And same thing applies. I have a port on the back, line in, trans flash card, USB-C charging. You can actually charge them via solar, and they actually come with a pocket on the bottom for some stakes that come with them. And the idea being, you could use these as like party speakers for outdoor picnics and get-togethers, 4th of July, stuff like that. You could leave them staked out. They'll be charged up with the solar, and that actually does work, by the way. It's not just a gimmick, it does work. Otherwise, it's basically the same kind of idea. And the controls work the same way. Plus and minus work as a start and restart track, next tracks, previous track, all that fun stuff, using those cards. So the same thing applies. Same file on 2 different SD cards, one per speaker, turn them both on, start each track at the same time, voila. But these speakers do have a party trick, and that is the Bluetooth thing I was talking about. These are Bluetooth compatible, but they will actually pair a pair of these together. So you can have a pair of speakers. They will pair to each other and then pair to your device as a single paired set of speakers. So it's only one device as far as your phone sees, but then the speakers are basically talking to each other. So you get stereo speakers on one connection. And now a lot of modern phones will actually let you connect more than one Bluetooth device for audio. You can actually connect 2. And the reason they do that is, let's say you have 2 people on a plane and they want to share the radio or something. You can actually connect to 2 different Bluetooth devices and play them simultaneously on a lot of music apps. Most phones do that nowadays, so that's an option. The neat part is I can take one set of speakers and pair them as one device, and then I can take a second set of speakers, Bluetooth them together into their own device, and then basically end up with 4 speakers all playing off of one Bluetooth signal out of my phone, which is pretty cool. I don't use it that way very often, but I do use it for like Memorial Day, 4th of July. If I've got people over and I'm doing like a cookout or something, I'll grab these. I'll set one on each corner of the porch or the tented area, whatever. Just, have all 4 of them playing. So in a nutshell, that's basically how my speakers work and how everything kind of sets up. Now, it is a dance, and I still have to fine-tune volumes a little bit, mainly because I like having different settings per room, obviously, and I want my music / ambient sound to kind of follow that theme. So I don't want you to walk into one room and then hear overpowering sounds from another room. I mean, you're going to hear certain props going off here and there, things like that, depending on what room you're in, how fast you move. Now, for example, I don't want you to walk into the witch's den and then hearing all the creepy ambience from the creepy room already overpowering it. Likewise, once you walk into the creepy room, Kind of don't want to have all the witching, bubbly cauldrons, whatever the witching ambient is, overpowering that room. So there's a lot of balance. You want to have enough sound, enough volume in each room, so that way you have, a good ambient sound, but not so much that it's overpowering other parts of the haunt. That's kind of the balance that I've been fighting with. Also mosquitoes, fighting with mosquitoes too. But now that the sound is 90% figured out, I'm going to take one of the regular candles that goes into the maze, and I'm going to do a slow walkthrough by myself, and we're going to see, because part of the problem I'm having with the maze, I know what's in there, I know what to expect and all that fun stuff, but I also don't know how well my eyes are going to adjust into the maze between the colors outside and the colors in there. Like when it's been bright outside, it's very hard to adjust your eyes to a lot of things. But when it's been dark, your eyes are not, overwhelmed with sunlight. So it might be easier to pick up on things in the dark. So I need to find out if a regular on setting is fine, or if I do need, in fact, to turn these all the way down. Being subjective as much as I can, knowing that I already know what's in there. Another thing I'm doing while I walk through this time is keeping a mind open for things that we can tweak. Now, for example, the boogeyman's in here. I don't want to set him off before I walk through. But I have down there on the ground right there, you can kind of see right there, there's one of those little spotlights. Now last year, the Reaper was in there, but one of the problems I had is the sensor wouldn't go off in the dark. The boogeyman does not have this problem, but the Reaper's sensor wouldn't really go off in that doorway. So I had that light down there to help kind of illuminate the sensor, and then obviously make it easier when somebody's walking in between. And it sort of worked better that way. But I got thinking, it'd be kind of neat if I had a light that was shining directly onto the boogeyman's face. So I'm kind of trying to think of ways like that we can kind of accentuate certain props in that way. And we're going to play with that after this. But I got my candle. I'm ready to go. Last few things we've got to wrap up. I have my fence created for my exit, but I forgot to bring a hammer to drive a stake of rebar in to secure the end of it. It's not really going anywhere, but I mean, I'd kind of like to get that knocked down. So I'm going to go see if I can't find myself a rock or something I can use to pound that down with. I was trying to use a crowbar, but I'm gonna lose some fingers if I keep doing that. So but we're gonna get that taken care of, and then the fence will be basically in good shape. I'll have to paint it, but at least it'll be there. The other things that we need to do, we need to shore up the floor in the hallway with some boards. So we're gonna go down and take a look at that real quick, and I'm gonna see what I can do about that. All right, so this half a 2x4, and then this one over here, this I think was the blocking for that piece. I think it's this piece right here that is actually the soft spot. It definitely feels soft if I touch it. Let's see if we can get our light to stay there. All right, there we go. So it definitely feels soft and spongy, so we need to brace that up. So I think what I'm going to do simply is just to cut a piece of that 2x12, basically enough to fit into this gap, and we're just going to wedge it up in there and screw the bejeebers out of it and call it good. We may, I was going to say, I may find a 2x4. Oh, I forgot to buy my 2x4 today. One more thing I forgot. But we may need to kind of get some leverage to that, so I don't know how we're going to do that just yet. But I think I just need to go measure this, cut this out, and then we're going to get a block up in there and call that good for now. So let's go do that. All right, now that screw there, and there's another one over here. Those were just there to kind of hold it temporarily, and then I ooga-dooga'd my hands up in there, and we got screwed in from the outside of the other boards, and we kind of toe-nailed in a couple places. So, yep, we're gonna see how it does. All right, so the good news is that spot is perfect, but I found another spot that's a little weak, so we're gonna go try to do it again, depending on what it looks like down there. But on the plus side, I found my candles, so that's a thing. All right, so this one here, basically, it's this whole section right here, still very wet stuff. This is all where that water was over the top of the stairway, so it's not surprising that this stuff is all kind of rotted and wasted away. But I think if I take that piece of 2x10, I think it'll actually fit all the way through here, including in the, where they put all these shims. You can see over the years that they put all these little shims in here to take up the gap between the floorboards and the floor joists themselves, which is hilarious to me. I mean, they're everywhere. These extra pieces, like they did a lot to keep these floors in. I don't think we're going to be able to save that. But we're going to put that board up here and get some 2x4s to go, basically just wedge it up. That's how I did it over on the other side. I just don't have the extra lumber today, so we'll just add that to the to-do list for next weekend. So we just got back down from the attic. Had to go get a couple of scrap boards. One was a 2x4, the other one was a 2x8. I bought 2 new 2x4s from Lowe's, but one of those is for the fence supports and the other one is for our upstairs mannequin. So I don't want to chop into those just yet. And I knew I had plenty of scrap lumber. I was trying to avoid using the heavy stuff. But I did find a scrap 2x4 and a 2x8 piece that are going to be long enough for what we're doing. And I'll show you what that is. Just bear in mind there is a generator running. So what we've done, we've put this board up here. I put this 2x4 across it. I put a structural screw on this end. Use this end as a lever to lift up to pinch this one up in there, and then screwed this one in. And I'm using these. I'm using 8-inch long headlock structural screws. So mainly so we've got enough penetration. I mean, you can see how far this is going to go into those 2x4s from this side. We want to make sure we got as much of that as possible. The only problem is now I need to do the same thing down there on that end, and then this end as well. And the reason for that is we want to be able to pinch up on as much as we can, but this end down here, we don't want that coming down because that defeats the purpose. So we got to put that one up in place, a brace up in there. That one, yeah, that beam is pretty soggy, so I'll probably do the same where I'll go I don't want to go left to right because that could weaken these joints here, and they're already weak as it is. So maybe I will. I'll just go straight into this stuff here. And maybe I can screw in down here and then put a block here. Maybe I'll do that on this end. That'll hold this end in place. And then we'll do another wedge on that end. So, time to go cut some more scrap. Now, unfortunately, I did find cat droppings in the basement. Neighbors do have a new cat. And it was relatively fresh, so I'm thinking it was today. And I did see him out back this morning when I was here, so probably him. Hard to contain that until I get the broken out windows in the basement boarded over. So we're gonna have to try that pretty soon. Luckily, the cats cannot get from the basement to up here. All right, so we popped in behind the boogeyman here to get out of the motion sensor activation of everything in here. So yeah, the floor feels about as good as it's gonna feel, so I'm done with that. Emmeline, I'm trying to look at now. That might work. I have to re-envision. I have to unhook her and see how far forward she goes again, because that fence is going to lean out there and I need to have some supports coming down to the ground. But then I also need to have a thing, like I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet. I don't want to pound stakes in the ground because the gas lines and stuff do go through the ground there, so we're not going to chance that stuff. But anyway, the floor part's done. I'm going to go ahead and whip up a mannequin for upstairs. Again, just a quick cross, and then yeah, just a quick cross with a 2x4 and a wooden base, and then that's it. That takes care of that. That shouldn't take long at all. The other thing we do need to do in here, though, and I hope I have enough plastic to do this and the other room. I should. I have 25 feet long. This is about a 12-foot wide room, and I think it's only about 8 feet wide, if that, in the maze. So we should have enough plastic, but I want to put a plastic curtain up behind the boogeyman, basically kind of, well, I guess window to here, maybe not in the window. Maybe we'll cover the window too and then come over. I was going to use the curtains for it, but the curtains are for the back door, we hope. But I want to have a black background behind him so people aren't looking in and seeing all this stuff. When the house is lit up at the end of the night, I mean, the windows do let in light, so you do get glow in the back room, and it's kind of takes you out of it if you can see all the empty boxes and all this other stuff behind me. All right, so you can kind of see how our mannequin came together. I just took this piece of 1x. These are just, you know, spacer blocks in there because I didn't bother hollowing that out or anything. Just made an X and used one of those 8-inch headlock screws coming straight up through it. That'll hold that there. It's not moving around. It's not a big deal. These are just to keep this from wobbling, and it doesn't. Up here, we just made a 2-foot piece for some shoulders, put it about my shoulder height, went up a hair higher, and then I just threw this on the top, and then sunk another one of those bolts straight up through, and then shoved the head on top of it. Now, it might feel a little flimsy if you're, you know, winging on it. But he's just going to sit up here in this window, doing nothing with this light, which is a, well, I guess it's there. This is a black light that's going to just shine on it. Now, it might get a little warm. We might have to back them up a little bit. We might have to adjust the light or whatever. Really won't know until it gets dark out and we can try messing with that. But the mannequin side is now good, and we got to go get the costume, put it on it. Yay! He's up. I mean, he's a little two-dimensional, but that's all right. It's going to be, again, seen from outside, so it's not the end of the world as far as that goes. But you can see we got the black light on here. There really isn't a whole lot of heat coming off of that. Certainly not enough where it's going to affect anything. Basically, this is just kind of, well, this is kind of how he is. Just kind of going like that. Now, I am going to put some blocks underneath him to kind of guide him closer to the downward angle, I think. I got something around here I'm sure I can stick in the back. Now, obviously, we didn't hook up things like the hands, which are pretty cool in their own right, but ain't got no room for that. So, yeah, I'm going to find something to block this up with. I think that board right there, maybe. And it's got some screws in it. That might even help us. Basically, just to kind of aim them downward a little farther. It's a lot better in person. In the camera, you really get the kind of almost the haze of the creepy cloth. But we have that guy right there, that mask. Ultimately, I'd rather be wearing it. Now, if I'm the one in here, or if whoever is running the in here part, if they want to wear the mask and go at people, all the more power to them. Let me take you in there and show you. But we have a remote for the strobe light effect, like so. And it's adjustable. I'll take you in here real quick and I'll show you. And then I got to head home for a meeting, and then we'll be back over later to take care of this stuff. But in here, this is our room. I've lost my light here. So you can see we've got the mask back here. And this is what I did. I just kind of made a platform off of the opening with a board coming up, and I stuck one of those 8-inch headlock screws straight down, stuck the Firefoam head on it, put here on it, kind of have him angled forward just a hair, so he's not backwards too much. I actually used this little screw just to kind of wrap some creepy cloth, which goes all the way down here to hide the stuff here so you don't really see that. And that's just kind of hiding it around his neck, tying it up so that way you don't really see the rest of him. The strobe light is over here, but it is an interesting strobe light. It's got a couple different modes, but we can also go solid. Now that is solid red, but it's very, very washed out on the camera. But then you also have fades and strobes and jumping. So if we go to fade, it'll fade strobe in between different colors. You'll see it get, red and blue. And let's go back to just a solid color. It does have white. You don't really have any intensity adjustment as far as the brightness goes, but you can adjust your strobe frequency, if you will. But I have found that by going on the slowest green setting, it's very disorienting when you first see it because you're just blink, blink, blink. Like it's actually better this way for shock value than having a faster strobe light. So that's cool. Yeah, so that's that, and pretty cool. Now, again, and as I was saying, if somebody wants to wear the mask, I'm all for that. I'll just zing in here with a screw gun and we'll just pull this shelf right off. The biggest thing is that whoever is in here, if they're not wearing the mask, they just have to make sure they're not banging themselves into this thing. So in between customers, you'll have this little lamp. But when there's no customers, it's going to be dark. And you'll be moving around because you've got the air hose to shoot out through this thing. And I almost thought it would be kind of neat to put the air hose with him so you kind of, as soon as the strobe goes off, you hear him go, tsh, which may still be a thing, but I almost think that that's kind of the way that this middle section works. You come around the corner, boom, you get hit with the strobey devil demon guy. Then you go around the front. Then you come around this other side. Mike gets triggered. He's going to go off, but before they get to there, there's this little slit down here. You stick the nozzle for the air hose through, and you go psh, and blast air. So you've got a scare, and then a scare, and then a scare, instead of having scare and then just, like, you don't want to do the same scare twice. So you don't want to have air go off over here and then over there because it's kind of And then Mike's going to pop up anyway. So, I mean, but it's kind of a neat little effect in here. I like this little room. It's kind of fun. Now, I've mentioned before how I want to be back here for all the scares, and at the same time, I'd like to be able to see what's going on. I'll have my iPad with me. I'll be able to see the cameras and stuff, but it's just not quite the same as being able to be out there in the midst of everything. But Back here, you do have quite the dance to do when you hear somebody coming. So you're going to hear that room go off. You got to turn your light off. Then you've got to turn the speaker on. Got to get your remote ready for this dude. You got to get your dagger mic trigger. You got to get your air hose, and you got to have them all in your hand in the darkness and know where everything's got to go. Now, again, if you have a chair, the downfall with this strobe light is that you do have to be kind of facing sort of at it in order to set it off. It doesn't really work elsewise, so you kind of have to be over here a little bit. Now, you can be down here, and it will go off this way, so you kind of almost need a chair in here, and I think I'm going to bring one in. But basically, you've got this big dance you got to do. Lights, speaker, people walk around, you hit them with a strobe light, and and then they walk around that way, and you got to get ready with dagger mic. You got to get your nozzle stuck out the hole and get ready to scare them that way. You've got this whole thing, and then when they're gone, you turn the speaker back down, you can turn the light back on, and get ready for the next group, assuming that you have that much time in between groups. Because again, I don't know what kind of timing we're having. So anyway, just wanted to show you real quick. That's what we've got going on back here. They didn't give my knife or anything. Yeah, I think we just got to run over to the house, come back tonight, do some plastic back here, and clean up. We've gotten quite a bit of the checklist knocked off. We've got the sheathing put up on the walls, the sheeting, the black plastic, both at the exit and up in front behind the boogeyman. So now he's not in a wide open room. Plus I covered off that one window, so that way there's no light coming into his room. Awesome. So we got that done. We got the Spectre costume put up on its little mini mannequin up front. Awesome. We've got the mask back here in the maze room. Also awesome. And kind of got that strobe light hooked up. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it is still pretty cool. Assuming it works well, then it'll be a pretty good effect. Other than that, though, the only thing left to do really is just to throw up creepy cloth in rooms that need it, which is a staple gun and some time, and program the controllers. We do also need to put up the curtains in the very back door to see if they'll work, but we don't know for sure. Other than that, though, we just got to clear all this stuff out. So between tonight and tomorrow morning, yeah, we're going to have this thing ready to go. So I will see you back here first thing in the morning as we button everything up and get ready for our first guests, our first official guests, I should say. See you tomorrow. All right, so we're back with the house. We have a couple things we need to finish up before guests arrive this evening. We do have a couple people coming over. Now, this is not our open. Our official open isn't actually till Halloween. However, we will be open the weekend leading up to Halloween. So 25th, 6th, 7th, and then the week nights leading into Halloween night itself. But those aren't what you would consider like a full open, like you would expect like a real haunted house or full haunted attraction to have. Like, it's not where like we're here 24/7 staffed and ready to go. It's more along the lines of, those are the days that I said I will be done with everything and ready to go for the people that want to come through prior to Halloween, be it because they can't make it out of Halloween or whatever. That doesn't mean that I'm expecting hundreds of people to come over on those nights. And the only reason I'm doing it that night is because those are the nights that I can probably get a couple helpers to help with. Now, the weeknights leading up to Halloween, I'll be running a solo. I don't think I'll have anybody able to help. But the week end leading before, I should be able to get at least a couple people over, and we really need to have really at least 2 more people than myself to make it really run. So if we run down the list again, we need someone handing out candy at the door, but that's not till Halloween. Yay. We need someone manning the door to let the groups in. Okay, we kind of need that person. We normally would need a person in the first room with the plague doctor to let people know that, you know, if they don't want to go through the rest, they can go out this way through the side door. Now, in a shortage, that person could be replaced by the person at the door saying, well, you can go down when you get to that first the first room. If you don't want to go through the rest, then just kind of veer to the right towards the hallway and go through that little doorway. But if you want to go through the rest, then go through the door on the left. Like, that person can kind of act as the director from the doorway, but ideally would have somebody in there to do so. Really, they don't have a lot to do when they're in there. It's literally just wait for the people to come through and say, would you like to go through the rest, or do you want to go through the safe way? That's it. Working yourself around, there's really nothing that nobody has to be inside any of them. Though, if we have the people, I just thought of a people one. So I might be able to put an actor in one or the other rooms. I have a couple people that said they want to help, but I didn't know
Up until now, I didn't know exactly where I wanted to put them yet. So for the sake of argument, though, we're going to pretend that nobody's going to be in those rooms. The first room that would really have anybody in it is the red room, the torture room, the shocking room. And that would be somebody in the chair who we need to have to hand out a candle to the guests, tell them to watch their step as they go into the maze, and ideally to shock the victim and whatnot. So I kind of need that person. Then we need somebody in the maze to do all the scaring stuff back here. Great. And then ideally we have somebody at the end taking the candles back, saying watch your step as you leave. Now 2 people would be my bare minimum for what I'd like to do, and that is basically saying I'll meet them at the doorway. The second person will already be inside in the red room waiting with the candle and waiting to shock our skeleton on the rack. I would tell them at the doorway, go down here, go through the left, follow the change pathways, and I'll see it when you get out. Then I can run back here and do my thing. That person will be in that room, and then that person can then guide them and say, oh, zap, zap, zap. Oh, and here's your candle. Please watch your step when you go in, and watch your step when you come out at the end, because that's how people get hurt. And we'll meet you back around out, and then just bring your candle back to him up front. And by that point, when they leave here, I'll go running back up through the house backwards and meet people out front, and we'll go through that. So. Yeah, bare minimum 2, ideally, bare minimum 2, smoother with 3, ideally like 8. But just as I was thinking, just to ramble through this, as I was thinking, I have a zombie mask, and my intent was to have somebody wearing that zombie mask, but I didn't know what they were going to be doing. I thought that if I could have somebody on that torture rack pretending to get shocked, that would be fun. Now, I don't know if I have anybody that can do that or wants to do that, but let's say we don't. We leave the skeleton there. It's still kind of a neat effect, even though it's kind of just a boring skeleton. Maybe I'll put the ultra posable there and still make it kind of at least a little... but still, it's a kind of a boring effect to have just a bare skeleton on there. But it's still a cool effect. So I take that mask, which doesn't proportionally fit a 5-foot skelly. I've tried. It doesn't look right. Plus, you've got a zombie head and then bare skeleton. Like, you really kind of need clothes and tattered and bulk, and it just doesn't work. So... I tried putting it on, it didn't work. But if we take that zombie head and we give it to somebody and we put them in the gory room, kind of standing next to Spike in just like clothes, jeans, flannel, whatever, just have them standing there. People will walk in, see all the gory stuff start moving, and then that person can lunge forward. That would be a cool effect. Nice. If I can find someone to do. I have a kid that wants to help, and that would be a good spot for him. The other thing with the helpers, and I want to mention this too, and this is the hard part for me when it comes to having people help. Now, family members and friends and stuff, like I know they know what I want, but when you get strangers that want to help do things, hey, I'll volunteer. I'd love to come help. The hardest part is reminding them that, hey, we're not out to like grab and shake and scare people that way. We're not doing the whole we touch you, you don't touch us thing. Now, we don't want people touching us, sure, but we also don't want to do the whole touching them. And that's kind of the thing that I like to do, is I like to not have our people touching those people. Not because I think it's wrong or anything like that, but it invites trouble. If you let actors touch you, it just breeds them wanting to be whatever. But then you get the younger generation now that just has to act tough for no stupid reason, and I don't get it, honestly. Like, we never had that growing up. Like, it was never that, oh, you better not touch me, I'll like, really, no one, you're not fooling anybody. You barely hit puberty, you are not a threat. Like, dude, come on. But they have to show off for their friends, and they have to act all tough. It's really annoying from an outside perspective, but the less we invite that, I mean, it's going to happen anyway, because that's just how it is. People see people, and they just have to act that way, to act tough. But if you added that extra dimension of, having an actor touch that person, it just makes it worse. So when I have people, like, for example, in that room, if I have somebody in that zombie mask and I just have them kind of lunge forward, that's all I need them to do. Right? So, like, it's not like I need you to run around and scare and chase people. It's I'm just going to, all I want you to do is be subtle. Just kind of a, you're standing there perfectly still, acting like a prop while they're watching everything else go off. And then you just kind of step forward. You don't have to come near them. You don't have to get to them. You don't have to all you have to do is move. Like, you move 1 foot towards them in a sudden manner and they will lose their shit. So that's cool there. I have another girl that says she wants to come help, but I don't really know what I'd have her do. That's the other part with the helpers, is that everyone wants to do something, but some of the roles really aren't glamorous, right? The person back here taking the candles and saying, watch your step, it's not really a glamorous job. And that's not what people want to do when they volunteer to help. They want to be, I want to go scare people. I want to make the kids cry, whatever. But it's not all glorious. Some of the behind the scenes stuff, some of the bit parts, some of the supporting cast, if you will, it's not a glamorous job. Dude, all you need to do is just say, thanks for coming. I'll take your candle. Please watch your step going out these next 2 rooms, and then just go out to the right and out the driveway. Thanks for coming. That's really all you have to do. You don't have to be dressed up, like nothing. You could, but at the same time, it's almost beneficial to not be dressed up in this back one, because if you're dressed up, people are going to want to hurry past you and not listen to you. If you're not dressed up, you're just a regular person, you'll still shock them because they're coming around the corner in the dark and you're a person that they weren't expecting to see. But at the same time, they're not going to be rushing to get away from you like they would if you were in costume. Anyway, that's talking about haunters and actors and helpers and all that stuff. We do need to get ready, though, because we do have people coming over this evening. Now, fortunately, it's only 10:30. That means we have plenty of time to get some stuff going. The downside is it's supposed to start pouring any minute. But it is going to put a damper on things, quite literally, because we do need to figure out this fence panel thing for Emmeline. It's not the end of the world if we don't, but I'd like to get it up. I'm just torn between, do I want to go look at that before it starts raining because I can do this stuff inside after it starts raining? Or do we go look at that stuff, do all that stuff first, regardless of raining or not, and then, worry about that after today? I really don't know yet. So the last things we have to do, we have to take the creepy cloth, put that up in the back room. We're going to go do that. We're going to go move my Spectre mannequin up in the upstairs. We're going to move that over a window over into where there's a spirit twin right now above the front door. And she's just easier to see there. And the Spectre costume would be much easier to see. It's not hiding behind Jack Skellington's head. So we're going to go do that. And then we're going to program our controllers. I have my laptop. I have my aux cord. We're good there. And then we're going to just clean up. And guess we'll get ready to turn everything over onto the large generator. I'll do a quick walkthrough, minus the speakers. I'll do a quick walkthrough, make sure everything's turned on, see if there's any other batteries I need to buy. I do think there are batteries over here. If we come out into this room, I don't want to come out there. He's still turned on. But if we come out into, if we come over into the Nosferatu room, A, there's stuff over there we have to clean out too. But B, in that hallway, there's usually a light up there, and it's really just run down to a 6-volt battery pack that I'd wired in. And I need some new D batteries to hook into that. All right, well, we've got we've got some problems here. We've got a couple cameras that are off. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 cameras, but we only have 7 hooked up. That's fine. But so here's our plague room, doctor. Our plague room. Oh, there we go. There's the creepy room here. Okay. So we walk in here, then you go into the creepy room, then you come over to the witch's den, which is currently missing. We're going to let that sit for a few, see if that shows up. We do have 8 cameras. We are missing another one. So we go into here, come into the gory room. Gory room, you go into the witch's room, which is missing. Then you go into the creepy room. Then you go into the shocking room, which doesn't have one. And then you're going into the maze. So here's the second maze camera, but we're missing the first one. So I don't know which ones are which. And then obviously down here is outside, which needs to be flipped upside down. So I flopped the 2 cameras around, right? I took the one camera that was working, put it on the cable that wasn't, and then that camera started working. So obviously that cable is working fine, but the camera itself is not, and that's a bummer. I'm going to look to see if there's any way to reset those cameras. I don't know if there are or not. Now my laptop's being stupid. There we go. I was going to say, my laptop being stupid is a problem if we want to get the
the sound to work, so that's a thing. But we're gonna go pull the dead camera down off the wall. That's we've got a couple options for that. Now the first option is replace this camera with the camera from the Witch's Den. Again, that room is less, I guess we'll call it less problematic. You get less of an effect in that one as you do in here. Don't know why this one's not working. There's really nothing you can do with these cameras either. So I'm going to look up real quick. I don't have the boxes or anything. I'll just buy another one, but I don't know if there's a reset or something you can do with these cameras. I'll have to look and see. I should also mention it's pretty cold in here. This is the one that works. That one doesn't. Right, perfect. There we go. Yeah, it's only like 40-ish outside, and 40-ish is cold. Anyway, we're taking our camera. We're going to take our mouse, which is in my pocket. But we're going to go upstairs and try this one more time just to see. If nothing of this works, then we're done. We get working on the rest of the house. All right, we may be on to something. Maybe. While I was sitting here, the camera works. See, right there. Camera works. Awesome. What I did is I went through and I deleted all of the channels. Now, they're coming back up, and you can see they actually have names on them. Skelly's, Butcher Shop, Office, Carnival, Driveway. So I just went through and I deleted them all, and then I just re-added them back in. I just plugged them all back in, and as you can see, they're starting to come back up. So that's an interesting thing. It's like we can get 7 of the 8 channels, and then the 8th channel fails, which is interesting. It's not saying that the channel is not there. It's just not showing up. So channel 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Customize adding devices. So that channel is not there. The interesting part is it's... Oh, you know what? I bet that's the camera. I forgot I have my temporary cable up here. So let's plug in the other one and see what happens. There we go. Now we got a light. Over here, I didn't have a light on channel 7. It's the weird part about these reel links is like channel 7 is right here, but channel 8 wasn't showing up. But channel 8 is actually camera 1. Like it's all over the place. Connection failed. That's okay. We're just slowly starting to come up. This one should be the camera for the Witch's Den. So we're just waiting on that one. And with any luck, we do know that that one works. Hopefully, there we go. All 8 cameras are working. Awesome. That means I don't have to change anything around. All right, so camera's back up. One more trip upstairs. Last time today. One more trip up. Make sure it comes back up. And then we're going to really hammer out the rest of this for the next hour. And then go home and get some rest. It's funny. I've been asked before when I'm working over here, you know, what can you possibly be doing over there all this time? But it's a lot of this little stuff. So you can see down here, I just put a spacer under the front of Art. Crap, his arm came off. As I was sitting here earlier, he actually fell forward. I was putting up this creepy cloth behind him, and he fell forward a little bit. So I had to grab his arm to stop him. It popped out of the thing. But I am going to put a couple screws. I'm probably going to grab another piece of this stuff and just use this as a clamp to clamp onto that back into the floor. Nice part about having a house you don't have to worry about is you can just screw shit into the floor. Likewise over here with the Twitching Clown. And I've mentioned this before. He has to be balanced in order to get the whole twitching thing down. Although that might be too much. The mouse trap was just about right. We got to fix Art, then we'll plug them back in and check them. But this is the little stuff, all the little stuff that you don't think about. It's one thing to say, oh yeah, I just got to hang up some creepy cloth like this and we'll be fine. I've just got to do this, that's no big deal. But all these little things, they start adding up in a hurry. And like today, it's like, oh, well, Art fell over. I got to make sure he's not doing that. He leans forward. I don't know why he leans quite so far forward. You might be able to tell. And that's with a 3/4 inch spacer board underneath him. So he does kind of have that to it. The twitching clown, same thing. If the floor is not perfectly level, he doesn't twitch. He just falls forward and just sits there, or backwards and just sits there. He doesn't actually move around. So we're going to see if that works. And basically, if this works, if these things actually do work the way I'm expecting them to be spacer-wise, then we're just going to kind of lock them down and then call it good. So let me go fix Art, and then we'll plug these guys in and make sure they're still working right. All right, we're down to the very last step of getting ready to open, and that is, drum roll, cleaning. Yep, not very exciting, but basically cleaning. I've just went through and I reprogrammed both this and the other controller. So that one out here, for example, if I pop my hand out here, you'll listen. Oh, I unplugged it. Unplugged them both. Anyway, I've got a bubbling cauldron that comes on when you walk into that room. This one, I've retuned the lullaby music as well as the little girl. So it's more pronounced for her. So that's great. So we're really basically there. And now, other than just organizing stuff, we need to kind of sweep up and clean up. So I have to go find a broom and a dustpan, and then we're going to do that. Get all my tools out of here, into the other room, and then magically we're ready to open.